Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to day 25. A happy Tuesday to all of you. Hi, Penny.
Hi, Kelly.
And we want to say hello to our special guest today, David Rockower, who's
David.
Thanks for coming, David.
Hey, thanks for having me.
As we mentioned before we went on, I was reading Tom Newkirk's new book. And it says here, Pennsylvania middle school teacher David Rockower has created an elective class titled 20,000 Words. Students can pick their genres and define their writing tasks, but they must hit that target. And the moment I read that, I said to Penny, we have to talk to this guy.
I want to be in that class.
So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the origins of this class, your thinking behind it. How do you get a class called 20,000 Words into the curriculum?
Yeah, it may help just to give you a little bit of background about my school because it's unique. So it might help folks understand why I'm able to teach a class called 20,000 Words. I teach in a small democratic middle school in central PA. It's part of the public school system. It's a school of choice. So it's not a charter school. It's part of the regular school system, and the school is governed by students, parents, and teachers.
Wow.
So anytime we hire a new teacher, for example, three teachers, 3 parents, 3 students serve on the committee, and we have to come to a consensus on who we're hiring. We have an advisory council made up of all parties, and decisions about the school are made together. We're on a first name basis with students, so I'm David to everyone here. We're mixed grade levels, so 6 through 8, all in the same classes, and the same at the high school level, 9 through 12. And one of the really cool things is we get to create our own curriculum. We still need to make sure that we're hitting standards, but I teach semester-long courses. So rather than students just taking 6th grade English, 7th grade English, they choose things like literacy through photography, or Grimm's fairy tales, or 20,000 Words. So that's a little bit about the school. It's a great place to teach, and
I think that alone is going to generate a ton of interesting, questions and insight. How big is the school? How many kids?
So our high school program is 160, and the middle school is 120.
So David, the school I taught at was exactly like that. Grades 9 through 12, 750. It was about 1,000 when I first got there. Now 750, all choices.
Yeah.
Grade 9s did the same curriculum, 10, 11, 12s, all in the same classes together. We had electives that were 9, 12, but our 9 through 12s were all electives. I taught artist story, poetry, research writing, which I loved. My friends taught sci-fi, gender, and equity. I mean, it's such a great model for engagement. Our kids took more than one course because they were interested.
Absolutely. And to finish answering your question, once a year we rotate through all the classes and we ask the students, what classes would you like to take that don't currently exist, right? What are you dying to learn about? And they come up with some wild ideas, but they also come up with some really great ideas. Like I had a couple students say, I wish we could just have a class where we could just write. And what they meant was, instead of, they start a story during a fiction writing unit, right? And 2 weeks later, it's over. Their story's done. They have to stop and move on to argumentative writing or whatever's next. What would happen if we had an entire semester to just write what we're already writing, or adding to a collection of short stories or poetry? And so I thought about, if we wrote 250 words a day, every day over the semester, we would be well over 20,000 words. And so that's where that idea came from. And I've had students write up to 80,000 over a semester. One student who's still writing her book now, and everybody is writing something different. We do some things together along the way in the course, but they have a big project that they're working on throughout the semester.
So each student determines his or her own project. Correct.
And sometimes, as I'm sure you both know, you have students who say, well, I don't know what to write about. And then that's a scary thing for some students, especially when the whole class is just immersed in writing every day. But there are so many techniques that we have, like the heart map and other ways to generate ideas to get them going.
Are yours 6 through 8 or 9 through 12, the class that you teach?
mine are 6th through 8th, but actually my 6th or 8th graders are now, some of them are in high school, and they asked our high school teacher, could we do a 20,000 words? And Gary, who teaches at the high school, said, you know what, we're going to do 50,000 words. So that's what they're doing now at the high school.
So if we were to walk into your classroom on a given day, what would we see?
Yeah, so the class our classes at the middle level are 65-minute blocks every other day. And the first 5 minutes, we always start with a quick write. I usually use a prompt from Linda Reef's Quick Write Handbook. And so we set the timer, usually paper and pencil in the notebook. Everybody writes for 5 minutes, can't stop writing. If you can't think of what to write, you write. I can't think of what to write until something comes to you. And then after the 5 minutes are up, we share out for another 5 minutes for students who are interested. After that, 10-minute mini lesson. Sometimes that's an inspirational video of a writer interview. Sometimes it's a quote that we discuss. And sometimes there are mini lessons on anything from mechanics like limiting run-on sentences, knowing how to make those paragraph breaks, to more content-specific stuff like strong verbs and specific nouns for imagery. And then the next 40 minutes, we write. So there's totally immersion in writing, and I bounce around from student to conference with them. They will sometimes ask to peer edit, share with each other. But it's pretty much a 40-minute block then, a solid writing time. And then at the end, we save 5 minutes or so for what we call golden lines, and where we just share out, hey, find one sentence you're really proud of that you wrote today.
Nice.
Sometimes that they're not willing to share, and in a class that's a little more quiet, I'll have them email me those golden lines, and then I share them out anonymously. And that's another really effective tool, because when I read those anonymously, the rest of the class usually is like, wow, who wrote that? And then those quiet kids are like, oh, that's mine, right?
Yeah.
And they start owning their work and are more willing to share.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, I know I shouldn't go there mentally right away, but like, how do you, how is a kid graded in this class?
Yeah, good question. We are working more toward ungraded work. So right before the pandemic, I started doing some non-traditional grading where I had students keep our feedback log, and they wrote reflections on their work bi-weekly. And then I would write back, I would dialogue back to write what the strengths and areas of need were. And then at the end of projects or check-in points along the way, we would determine together, based on traditional grading scale, where do you fall? We still need to put grades in the grade book. So we would come together and decide, is this what you and I would describe as B work or A work? It's a shame that we have to use the letter grades, but we do.
But a lot of the day-to-day stuff is ungraded.
Yeah, I grade for completion. So if they had a prompt that they had to respond to for homework, if they did it, they would get points for that.
So Penny and I hear a lot, and we've heard it, people say to us, because we share your philosophy. We hear, well, if you don't grade it, they won't do it. What's your response to that?
If you grade it, many still won't do it. And if you do or don't grade it, it doesn't matter. If they are engaged and invested in the process, they're going to do it. And a course like this offers unbelievable opportunity for engagement. And I think that we do a disservice to students and teachers when we hold them back and try to hold their hand too much with writing, with students and with teachers when we try to tell them exactly how and what to teach along the way, every step of the way. I think it really limits us. So the more that we release ourselves from that structure, both as teachers and students, I think the more engagement and love for writing and reading occurs.
I would agree. And I would love to steer the conversation away from grading if you're done, Kelly, just because I wanted to know about the 40-minute, the big section of the class, what the conferring looks like. And do you ever use writing groups?
I don't know if I use writing groups the way that you're referring to them, but I do have students who want to write together sometimes to work on a project, to co-write something. So they will do that. And then they will offer each other feedback in small groups. So
what
students
I meant.
who, yeah, definitely, we do that. So a couple different ways. Just sometimes it's as needed. So students will just write their names on the board. Hey, I need to bounce some ideas off people, and then we'll form groups organically that way. And what it looks like with me, I try to move around as much as possible and not get stuck in one spot, because I like to get to everybody over the course of a class period. It's not always possible, but sitting next to a student and just asking them, what do you need from me today? What would you like me to look at? Obviously, I can't read the whole 10,000 words that you've written so far, but and I talk about that at the beginning of the period. Start thinking about what you want to pull for me to look at. What's the problem today? What are you excited about? Where do you need me? And then I'll read that with them, or read it silently, and offer feedback. And it's mostly positive. I really try to. Catherine Bomer's a big fan of hers too, and I know she likes finding those hidden gems in students' work. So that's how I come to their work, finding what the strengths are, and so building them up as writers. And then they're much more willing to hear, hey, what can I do to take it to the next level?
Wow, Don Graves would have loved you so much. I mean, it's all of that thinking embedded. I'm curious what you are learning about teaching writing from teaching a course like this. What have you learned as a teacher?
Well, it's confirmed just how messy the process is, right? When I write on my own, it's messy, and conveying that to students, you can tell them that it's messy, but if they've been in a writing program all along the way where their hand has been held and they're filling out worksheets before they can advance to the next stage, they don't really have experience diving into the whole process and writing for long, long periods of time. So I'm learning how surprised they are to learn how messy the process really is, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I mean, Penny and I have submitted a manuscript for a new book that's coming out in the fall, and we have a chapter on essay writing, and you are repeating many of the themes in that chapter. That helicopter teaching does not do our kids any favors, and that the younger we can get them to embrace in the wrestling match, the younger we can get them to, get into that messiness, then they don't become college freshmen who are struggling to write in Penny's class.
That's right. Well said.
It's so true what Kelly just said. You just keep naming things that we believe are so critically important, and teachers get all bound up by it's not possible, like when they hear that your school is not a regular public school, it's run by parents, but it's not true, because our department just decided these barriers, it was too important to have a series of elective courses. And then you begin to unwrap what you learn in that. And I can just hear that this process of letting, like, kids didn't know they could write that much. Some of the kids you have, right, they're surprised.
That's right.
That's a really important lesson that's not a standard.
Right. That's exactly right.
I'm wondering who takes the class. Do you have reluctant writers who take that class?
That's a great question. I would say it's I think it's students who are avid writers make up 50% of the class. And then you have another 30% who are itching to discover who they are as writers, right? They don't see themselves as writers, but they're intrigued. And then the rest of the students are like, I didn't have anything else that looked interesting, so I want to see what this is about.
Everyday kids.
Yeah. But some of those kids are great to talk to them at the end of the course, because they all of a sudden feel like a writer, right? They've submitted something. Part of the class I should have mentioned before is writing for publication. So one of the things we look at during the course is writers' market guides, how to write a query letter, how to submit for publication to a magazine or a contest. And I write for a magazine in town. I do a bi-monthly essay called Family Matters, where I write about my family. And so every time I teach this course, I give up one of my columns to a student, and the students write a Family Matters piece, something that they're interested in sharing about their family, and submit it, and the editors of the magazine choose one to publish. So the student gets published every time we have the class.
Oh, that's so wicked cool. Of course you're a writer, but the idea that they compete to be your guest column. Wow.
That's cool.
To me, that the bigger picture here too is, it's one thing to be in an English class and learn how to write a literary analysis essay to please the teacher. It's a whole different thing to walk out of a semester class and say, you know what, I might be a writer. I identify as a writer. I've learned moves and techniques that writers do, that you begin to assume that identity as a writer, which I don't think happens unless that volume issue is addressed.
Yeah, it seems like we know that about reading, right? We know through your work, through Nancy Atwell's Reading Zone, through Donald Miller's work, we know that reading in abundance is necessary to become good readers. But I don't know that we've embraced that as teachers of writing, right? We still, as you've said, hold their hands a little too much, but logging those writing miles is critical to becoming a good writer.
When we were working on 180 Days, Kelly would come out to visit my class, and I was teaching a 12th grade class at the time as well. And he would remember Olivia, but when she finished her novel, she carried it around in its print box with a little, rope handle. She carried it class to class for weeks, this accomplishment of her first novel she finished. And I was thinking, because I was just on a different conference, and Gary Soto was a keynote speaker, and he said, as a writer, you should always test the boundaries of what you can do. So he was asked to write for an opera in San Francisco, and he had no idea how to do it, but he did it. He said, you should always be, and think about how these kids that are signing up for this course are testing the boundaries of what they can do in a safe place.
Yes.
The other thing that Atwell said is two things have to happen for somebody to be a writer. One is the volume issue that we've been talking about, but the second one is experimentation. To have the ability to experiment, which you can't do if it's graded. Because if you're going to grade me, I'm not going to experiment. I'm going to try to write that thing that pleases the teacher, right? But where is that sense of experimentation in the writing curriculum? It seems to me you can't write 20,000 words without some sort of deep level of experimentation in there.
That's right. And we have to embrace that. We do throughout the course. Kids, as you know, come in, they're sold that they're going to write this novel. And then 2 days later, I don't want to do this. I want to write something else. And it fizzles out. And that's okay. We have so much time to, as you said, experiment and try new techniques. And it's part of the process.
Well, that's what we do too. I think I'm going to write about my dad. No, I'm not feeling that today. Let's go somewhere else, right?
That's right.
Not assigned to me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I want to know, it's a direct flight from Boston to Philly. Do you take visitors? I want to hang out with your writers. I want to learn in this place.
Yes, absolutely. We have people here all the time who say, what is this school? We want to see it in action. I would say not this year, but next year, hopefully.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're still about a 3-hour drive from Philly, but you're welcome anytime.
So I think we would be remiss, though, if we finish this without mentioning also as well, you have a book coming out with Heinemann. Is that correct? Your first book?
Yes, I do. This fall.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's the working title is The Power of Teaching Vulnerably: How Risk-Taking Transforms Student Engagement. So the whole idea came from when I did the fellowship with Heinemann. My action research question was, in what ways does teacher vulnerability impact student learning experiences? So I was so taken with Brene Brown's work on vulnerability that I wanted to see how that would impact my teaching. So I used Brene's definition of vulnerability, which is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And I started thinking about how often we ask students to be vulnerable, and it's pretty much every day. But I wondered how much we as teachers are doing that on a regular basis, because we get pretty safe and set in our ways sometimes, myself included. But I wanted to see if I started taking risks, how that would impact the student learning experiences. And I built the book around 3 different types of vulnerability: personal, which is sharing our stories through writing; relational, which is offering genuine apologies when we mess up and giving really authentic compliments; and then dialogic vulnerability, which is facilitating crucial conversations in the classroom, even when they make us a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Mm.
Is Newkirk your editor?
No.
Oh, he was ours, so it's just wondering.
Okay, no.
Wow.
So say the title and the expected release date again for us.
Yeah, that's called The Power of Teaching Vulnerably, How Risk-Taking Transforms Student Engagement. And we don't have a date, but hopefully this fall, it'll publish this fall.
That
Well,
is,
congratulations. That is so
Thank you.
exciting. I can't wait to see it.
I bet you had to write 20,000 words or so to get that finished.
Or so, yeah. And then rewrite them all again.
Did the kids
So-
participate in you writing that book?
Oh, there's a lot of student voice in the book, yes.
But I meant, did they see your drafts? Did they see your process? Did they see any parts of it?
That's a great question. They did, yes. They saw the work that I was, some of the work that I was doing pre-COVID when I was doing the fellowship with Heinemann.
Nice.
So David, before we let you go, and we're appreciative of your time, especially after you taught today, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
But do you want to do a lightning round, or should we just go to what are you reading?
I want my lightning round question answered. Who is
Go
your
for it.
first celebrity crush?
Oh my gosh. Celebrity crush. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Hey, I'm gonna make Kelly
I
share.
can see the look.
Okay.
I can see the look
Okay.
on your face.
Okay.
Whether you're trying to decide to.
It's
go forward.
exactly. Do I say this? It was Madonna. I'm a child of the 80s.
Love it. Love it.
Who was yours, Kelly? You gotta fess up.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know. First, like I'm older than David, so I'd have to go back. I'd say for many years it was Halle Berry, but I'm
That was
sure there
back
were
when you were a little kid.
there were many before that. Well,
I'm
Penny, you can't leave without you answering the question.
Yeah,
as
one
well.
of my first was Donny Osmond, so I had posters in my room.
So
But
David, before we leave you, what are you reading?
I am reading everything by Elizabeth Strout right now. I was so taken with Olive Kitteridge, and I'm a big character-driven reader. So the way she does characters is just amazing. I think the one I just finished was Anything is Possible by her. Also recently read King and the Dragonflies, which was amazing. Yeah, and I love Jennifer Donnelly, giving her a shout out too. So since I teach a class called Grimm's Fairy Tales, we use some of her work in there, and she just wrote a book called Poisoned. These are just reimaginings of fairy tales. She also, Stepsister is another one that I recently finished.
Very cool.
that's so great.
Well,
I'm so
we're
inspired. I want to go write 20,000 words. I don't know.
All right, let's do it.
we're super appreciative of your time and love what you're doing, and hopefully this will spark some interesting conversations and other systems that are dialing into these conversations. So thank you again for coming and hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I can't
Yes.
believe I get to talk to you. So thank you.
Oh, we're thrilled. Thank you.
All right.